Welcome to the Three Bridges podcast, hosted by Limerick Chamber and sponsored by AIB. My name is Sean Golden. I'm the Chief Economist and Director of Policy with Limerick Chamber, and today I'm talking to Dermot Scanlon and Emma Morgan of Serosep. Dermot, Emma, thanks very much for coming on the Limerick Chamber podcast. I suppose I want to start at the beginning. Dermot, I've heard you tell this story before, but I'm sure our listeners are very interested to hear how did Serosep start, and I suppose Emma as well, given you've been in Serosep for a few years, how has it changed over that period as well from the initial setup point, I suppose?
Yeah, Serosep started by accident actually. I was working for a company in Holland, and just prior to that I was working in Limerick with a company called Amicon, and we lost our FDA licence. I was working in the medical device business. I moved with my wife and my eldest son at the time. He was just only 6 months old, and we moved to work in Maastricht for about a year. I worked in Maastricht for a year, and I was working in a medical device company that took us over essentially in Raheen. I took over the Amicon facility and closed us down, and I then got an opportunity to distribute a product. I was returning back to Ireland, and I had told one of my good friends, a distributor company, or a company that manufactured veterinary diagnostic products in Belgium, and they said to me, you know, you're returning back to Ireland, would you consider distributing our product? And that's how it started. I took the chance that we'd set up Serosep, and they gave me a small bit of support, came in and said, made some visits with me, and at that time it was veterinary diagnostics we started the business in, and we diversified it into clinical diagnostics, but started on my own and wasn't in that business before, so it was quite a difficult challenge in the beginning. Yeah,
I suppose at what point did you realise like there was a serious business opportunity here?
The reality is,
are you still realising that?
No, if I think back, I planned to close the business on probably 2 occasions. Yeah. And I was one day I had said to Noreen, I said I think I'd be better off going back working, because I had a good job, yeah, and I had, we were doing pretty okay. One day I said to myself, it's not working out. We weren't making money obviously in the first year, and I didn't really see it happening, and I got a breakthrough. At that time I had a fax machine on the side of my house, and I came in that day after returning from the field, and I saw an order for, I'll never forget it, 1,400 Irish pound at the time. Yeah. And that changed it for me. Okay. I actually had enough money to survive for the month on the profit I was making out that order. So to be honest with you, that kind of said to me, it came out of the blue a bit. Yeah. I had gone and visited the customer and given them samples. I got this product from Australia at the time, and it just I got that business, and then I built other bits and pieces of business, and I stuck in then, and it got better obviously. Yeah.
And where does the name come from actually? Because I heard you pronouncing it Serosep there, and yeah, I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong for the last 4 years. As long as I know you, I say Serosep, so it's a bad time to realise that. But
it's actually an amalgamation of 2 company names. One of them was called Serona Diagnostics, and again we were distributing products in the early days of the business before we began manufacture, and the other company was a company called Intercept in the UK. Okay. So a guy called Paul Reardon in the UK said to me one day, he said, why don't you amalgamate the 2 names? And he had actually vested interest in both companies. Yeah. And I just picked him up, and it was a kind of a peculiar name. Yeah. And it didn't mean a whole lot to anyone, but people don't tend to forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I suppose, Emma, you've been in Serosep now for a few years. Yeah. How have you seen it change throughout that time, even in size, scope, employee numbers, the terms of devices and diagnostic equipment that you offer?
Yeah, so I suppose I'm 18 years in Serosep. So when I started, we were manufacturing our own products, but the distribution side of the business that Dermot is speaking about was the main hulk of the business. It was about 80%. And we had the product Histopot, on the go, and it was only sold in Ireland. And I suppose, like, I'm working with Dermot a long time, and Dermot makes brave and bold decisions along the way. And he decided he had enough of this histopot. We were all helping out. We would go down, everybody had a rota on a Friday. You could be down filling pots down the manufacturing area. And he said, you know what, Emma, I think we're going to automate this.
Okay.
And like we were kind of looking at you, Dermot, kind of going, okay, we didn't have the capacity to fill an automated unit. It wouldn't be on all the time.
Yeah.
But we put in our first automated line. We got support from Enterprise Ireland for it. And I suppose we've never looked back since then. We distribute the product now in 33 countries. We run a shift now for Histopot.
Okay.
So that's one example of, there's many changes that have happened in Serosep. While that was going on, Dermot was also looking at, I think we're going to innovate. There's something has to be done in this area of gastro.
Yeah.
And that was the start of the enteric bio journey, which is now like it's an Irish and UK #1 gold standard product for gastroenteritis.
And it was a first of its kind, wasn't it? The diagnostic tool.
The PCR kit for gastroenteritis was a first to market. Yeah.
And is that the background you had, Dermot, was developing those types of things?
No, I've a chemistry background, so I was probably happier in the chemistry side of it, and I had to really learn about biology a bit more, and it wouldn't have been my favourite subject, but I equipped myself, I guess, with it, and surrounded myself then with other people that really did know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, we were first to market with that. It was a 3-hour test instead of something like a 48-hour test.
Yeah. And how do you go down the route of teaching yourself biology? Was it books, the classes?
I studied to leaving cert, but I just think I was genuinely interested in the area, and as you said earlier, I just thought there was opportunity there. And as we got to know people, then we could see that they needed to kind of make life easier for themselves. So the whole ethos of the company early on was about how we could help people to have a better daily life in their work, get through their work faster without they having to do laborious tasks, and slow diagnostic results would be something they'd be waiting for. So anything that could speed it up, we were involved heavily in that sort of work.
Yeah. And I suppose when you started, distribution was a big part playing the business, and then moved into manufacturing. What's the split now, or what way does it go? Do you still distribute a lot, or are you focusing on your own products more and more?
We still distribute in Ireland, and we have a UK company now as well. So they started off as well with focus on our own manufactured products, and now they distribute. But the distribution side is more of a complementary to the stuff that we sell. I would say the split now is 90%, if not more, percent is manufactured product, with the rest being distributed product. So it's nice, and the distribution product, like, it's a very nice business to be in, and we don't take it for granted. We were only discussing it yesterday in a meeting, actually. But the manufactured product it has really mushroomed for us, I suppose.
Yeah, it's good to have that diversity in business, I suppose, to be able to have the distribution but also rely on your own product. Did you always think you were going to go down that route with Serosep, Dermot, or did it kind of just happen organically over time?
To be honest with you, I remembered I had a fridge in my utility area of the house, so I started the business out the house, and I was storing kits that would have to be stored at 2 to 8 degrees in my home fridge. Then I needed a freezer, and I bought a freezer, and put that into the utility area. And I had an office then. We had a kind of a converted garage inside the house, and I thought this would be, Dermot would be a one-man band for a while, probably a secretary at the most. And after shop use time, I did get a secretary because it allowed me to do a bit more.
Yeah.
But I didn't really think that we would ever get the company to where we are now. Yeah. Probably would have dreamt of getting a bit bigger, but I got more ambitious as we went on.
Yeah.
And as Emma said, you had to take some risk and chances. And I was fortunate enough that I was very lucky, really. Most of the things we done worked out pretty well.
Would you be a natural risk taker, do you think, or You know,
I don't really know. I guess I think I'd be quite conservative
I
about
wouldn't
it.
describe
myself.
him as that. No, I wouldn't describe Dermot as. But I think what I would say, and off the journey of Serosep, what I have learned from working with Dermot is he's very observant. So, like, I think the products that we started to go down the route of manufacturing was born out of the relationships that you had created through the distribution product, going into the labs, going into the hospitals, and seeing the bottlenecks and the issues inside in there, and going, God, I could do something about that.
Yeah.
And then he'd come back with an idea, and that would be it. We'd be off then.
Yeah.
That's kind of how it's rolled.
so you kind of had to prove a concept before you even developed something. You knew there was issues
Yes,
within
yeah.
industry that
I
you
suppose
could.
we kind of knew the market that we were serving,
Yeah.
and that's pretty important, isn't
Yeah.
it? There's no point developing products if no one's going to buy them.
Yeah, and that would was that just simply because you were in the business for so long at that stage that you knew the market inside out?
Yeah, I started to get some knowledge,
Yeah.
And I knew people then, and you actually needed help from your customers to develop the products and for them to evaluate it and advise you. So we built up a good name for ourselves, giving good tech support. I like to think we were an honest company, reliable,
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. Our values were good, and I think that we generally had a really good name in the market.
Yeah.
And people wanted to help you then, it's common sense, isn't it?
Yeah.
Help is kind of the key word in there. Good people will always try and help other people
And
if they
that-
think you're good as
Yeah,
well.
I mean, like that's something we've heard a few times on this, I suppose, season of the podcast, is the aspect of community, and whether that be, communities in your family or communities, other business leaders or whatever, that it's hugely important. I suppose, what was the hardest aspect of scaling the business so far? Like, I'm interested about, there's obviously quite a leap to go from your garage and a fridge at home to, we'll say, Anacati, the UK, South Africa. Like, I'm sure there was lots of hard learnings for both of you throughout that process. Like, but what
Do you have any thought process on it yourself, or you're probably better off to make that call than I just from...
I think really it was when, like, you'd have an idea, but things like the investment that was required to invest in the manufacture of the Histopot. I'll go back to that example. Like, you're kind of going, how am I going to make, for me, from a finance point of view, I'd always take the ideas Dermot would have very seriously, but I'd always be going, how are we going to make this work? How are we going to keep the books balanced? And there was always a kind of a level-headed approach there as well about the books and the importance on the numbers. That's always been critical for us in Serosep. We've always liked to have good numbers. But it was the risk of, if we go too far down this and we won't be able to turn back, like, what, that's the risk, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I suppose, like, when you're looking at that kind of international aspect of the work, how do you decide on where to go? Because
like, the diagnostic world is a small world, so you get to
Okay.
know people. You go to trade shows and you meet people, come onto your booth. They're like-minded people. You can kind of tell pretty fast after a few minutes if it's a serious company, if you share some values, kind of business values. So I'd have come across, like, South Africa as an example. I came across this company, ProMed, a number of years back in 2010, 2012. And it's a kind of another day story, but I was coming back literally on a flight from Helsinki on a trade show, and I thought it was a bit more than good fortune. This guy that I had known, met previously at an exhibition, he was attending a distributor meeting in the Czech Republic, and we went out and had a few beers together and got to know each other well and got on really well. So he said to me, kind of, have you any bit of money, Dermot? He says, I want to buy out my partner here, who's not really contributing to the company, and we've a good business. So I think 3 or 4 beers later on the plane, we're getting into London, I said, I suppose we have a small bit of money at the time, and we found our way to buy into the company slowly over a period of time, and we ended up getting about 50% of the company at that stage. And ironically enough, the company was then sold and spun off to another company, and we did reasonably well out of that. So Neil continued to work with that company, and just a few years ago he contacted me again. He decided we'd like to, I've formed a new company, we'd like to distribute Serosep's enteric bioproduct. Then we got one site using our product, quite a big customer, and then he offered to sell the business to us, and we bought 80% of that business. So that's that was a little bit like down to, you get to know people personally and they trust you,
And it's kind of rare enough. Like, obviously we're very lucky here to have a strong manufacturing base of multinationals and, to spin out companies, but to have a Limerick based or Irish based company that is getting to the stage where we're having international sites is amazing, and it's certainly not something that we take for granted in the chamber. To have someone of your caliber actually on the books is incredible. It always helps when you come on podcasts as well, and chat. How is it, managing multiple sites across, different time zones, totally different regulatory environments, etc.? Or was it because you had that existing infrastructure through acquisitions that it was a fairly seamless process?
It hasn't been too challenging. It hasn't been without its challenges either, but I suppose from a quality regulatory perspective, the UK is an easy one because it's such, like, you're over and back, you can go over and back in a day, and the company is based very near
Gatwick. Sorry,
Gatwick. So you can fly from Shannon or you fly from Dublin. You can get in and out in a day, and I suppose the way and the regulatory systems are quite similar in the UK and Ireland. So there's a lot of, they can kind of piggyback off what we have. South Africa is a bit different. The regulations are quite different. So that company, the guys that had run that company previously, they take care of that side. But we would look after all what I would call the back office kind of supports. We support from a financial point of view, managing their accounts. We'd have regular kind of operations meetings, stuff like that. So that, and we'd support them from an IT perspective. We're all kind of on the same system. So we can offer support when they need it, but they kind of manage themselves as well, but it seems to work.
We support them then, like, technically we'd have superior knowledge to them when they need it, and that's really important. It's all about technical support. We've got a lot of scientists in the company. I think about 75% of us are scientists all told.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's quite a lot of scientists.
And is that concentrated mostly in Limerick, or is it all over, like, UK as well and South Africa?
Yeah, we've about 106 now in Limerick, and 20 in the UK and 7 in South Africa. So
yeah. And I was kind of doing a bit of research online, and is the UK focused more on training and research and development, or is it just kind of fulfilling distribution?
No, the UK would be distribution of our product mainly, and supporting it on the field. And again, we support it heavily. That's one thing we invest a lot in, is making sure that when the product goes out into the field, if there's any hitches, there's always someone there to sort problems out. So we have equipment, we have software, we use artificial intelligence software to call results on a patient if they're positive or negative.
Yeah.
There's a lot involved from that with that test. Like, it took a good few years to develop and get right. So it's you need that support, and you have to compete against multinationals that offer that support. We like to say that we would offer a better support in general, and that's how we kind of differentiate ourselves from the field.
Yeah, and I suppose it wasn't something that we thought as a team of for these podcasts, but AI has come up more than once, and organically, to be fair. Have you been using the AI? Obviously, it's exploded in the last year. We're all generating images of stupid stuff, but have you been using it in the business kind of longer term, or is it a relatively new?
We would be. As a company, we would have been quite automated in our manufacturing processes. There, we invested very early days in automation because we just believed in it.
Yeah.
In accounting, you've recently started to use artificial intelligence.
So we're trying to leverage, I suppose, a lot of my direct reports would be all the support areas of customer service, IT, HR, finance would all kind of, I would oversee all those departments. And what we've been looking at is where we can leverage AI to relieve kind of the mundane tasks and make people's jobs nicer, I suppose. And in that as well, you don't have to expand the teams as quickly.
Yeah.
So we started with finance. So we use a thing called optical character recognition to process now 80% of our invoices for us.
Yeah.
And the lady that did that job, she just approves them now, and she can do other stuff rather than just processing invoices every day, because we could have 700 invoices a month.
Yeah.
So we do things like that. We're looking at even automating now the actual preparation of the management accounts, and that the financial accountant will just review them and post whatever journals, make whatever changes, and then they'll just redo them again. So it's about kind of using it that way, in a smart way. I still think we have a long way to go with AI. We're kind of really we're easing ourselves into it, I suppose. Like a good lot of us have done AI for personal productivity, how to use things like ChatGPT and
So are these like training
Copilot
courses
and stuff
that
like
you-
that.
Yeah.
So a good lot of us have gone on them just to kind of see how you can just improve your own day-to-day, get things done quicker, more efficiently. And I find it's very handy to remove the mundane stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're very early doors with it.
Yeah.
We still have a lot to develop and think out. And there's the AI Act is coming, and our industry is highly regulated as well. So we have to look at the implications from that perspective as well, in relation to the product and all of that kind of stuff. So there's a lot to think about. There's a lot to digest with it.
Yeah.
And I think we're very early in that journey. But I would like to think if you talk to me again next year, Sean, we'll be much further down that road.
Yeah. Great. Well, like it's good to see adoption, within the existing process, and hopefully future-proof somewhat whatever changes come down the line. You mentioned highly regulated. How do you stay agile and I suppose and innovative in such a highly regulated environment? Is it possible at all, or is it simply?
That's an interesting
With
question,
difficulty.
because it's one of the things that would cause me personally a lot of grief in the company. You have two forces dichotomous at opposite ends of each other. So you have regulation and killing innovation, and it's well known.
Yeah.
I really can't put up with the European Union and the regulation they're bringing in our area is really supporting very big companies, and it's working against small companies like ourselves. First of all, it costs an absolute fortune, and you are right, you can't innovate as much. But what we found that you can do is you have to resort to innovation through kind of a continuous improvement. So even in that kind of our earlier mission statements, we used to always mention continuous improvement.
Yeah.
And that's actually what we are doing. We are innovating constantly, but we can only do it very incremental. So you can't make massive changes. It's too expensive to do it. It costs fortune, millions. Like it can set you back so much on the cost. It's prohibitive.
Yeah.
You kind of have to make your changes in one foul swoop and then validate them all and do clinical trials. Now we have to do the equivalent clinical trials like you would if you're doing an FDA trial in Europe. It's really no different. In fact, it's worse. It's more strenuous.
Okay. So, you have to go through two different processes, then one for if you want to go to the States, and then another one for Europe.
And it's double the amount of money then.
Well, I was going to ask that, in
millions.
terms of resources that you put into it, and then the monetary investment. Surely there's a point where it gets prohibitive, because I suppose one of the things we always hear in literature material is that the United States is far more innovative in terms of supporting business and entrepreneurial businesses than Europe is, and this seems to be kind of a case in point for that, where you have obviously a very important, I suppose, sector that it is regulated, but maybe getting to the point of over-regulation where it's kind of stifling innovation within the sector. So, when it comes to continuous improvement, is that something you like to do through staff or processes to enable staff, or what way does it normally work for you?
Well, we kind of make different iterations of our test. So we are on now a version 3 at the moment, and that's actually rather significant. We've kept some things that we had that were good, and we've introduced new. We've introduced a complete diagnostic system that's really small. It's about half the size it used to be, which is really important in the lab that we go to. So, for instance, that has changed fundamentally. So that is quite a big step. That's the first time now we've done that, and it's absolutely costing an arm and a leg.
Yeah.
Millions.
Okay.
And we're funding that, and the only way we can do it is because we're spending money every year on it. So we have a certain amount of money to spend on that, and we try and control that. And thanks to the finance, we don't overspend that.
Yeah.
So we've 20 people working in R&D now.
Okay.
In Serosep, and that includes software people, laboratory people, developing products. We have the kind of IDs already, and they're getting it regulated and approved, clinically tried and tested. So that's kind of the nature of the beast. 20 scientists involved doing zero else, only research and development.
Yeah, incredible. And do you find it tough to get those people at the moment that are, I suppose, experts in that area, or even have the interest to develop their skills in it?
I suppose, I think a couple of years ago, we would have found it a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
There wasn't as many life science companies in Limerick, and there wasn't as many courses available in Limerick. So you weren't getting the pool in Limerick. You had to go outside of Limerick. So we were going to places like Cork, Galway University, particularly Dublin, to attract talent to Limerick. And I suppose, interestingly, on another note, that's how we brought about our sports and social club and all of that kind of good stuff that you'd see in our social media now. Was kind of born of this idea of trying to, how do we get people to stay then in Limerick? Do you know, if you're attracting them from Galway or Dublin, how are they going to put roots down in Limerick? You know, when they don't really, outside of work, have a
network or
So, and I think that leans into then the awards that we've won and stuff like that, and now there's been a catch up in Limerick as well. So there's a lot better courses, a lot better pool is being generated within Limerick as well, and the life sciences companies like Edward Life Sciences, Eli Lilly, all of that kind of stuff cropping up around the place are attracting more talent. So we don't have as many problems attracting people, and I think all of those awards that we have they really help people actually look at that kind of stuff. It might be taken a little bit, maybe, you know, as a bit of fun, maybe internally, but for me, I love the awards, as Dermot will attest to. I think they are very important. Like people do look out for that kind of stuff. They want to know what you're going to offer them, what reason would they have to join you. So no, we don't seem to have that problem. Thankfully, we've a very good workforce. They have great values. They're a great team. They're very solid, and a lot of people tend to stay. You know, anybody that is leaving is nearly crying leaving because they want to go travelling, but they're like, oh, you know. And we've had a few come back off their travels and ring us and say, "Is there any chance I get back in?"
I'm back, and I can see that as well. Like, it's something you can definitely, because I know obviously you've won the Limerick Chamber Awards a couple of times, but you've also won Best Workplace on a national level as well. I think was the results, and it comes forward, you know, in your comms and communications. So I obviously know people working there as well, and they're very happy there. And that's your key retention plan, is to create that type of workplace where, you know, you don't have to hire someone new, you just keep your staff. And does progression play a part in that as well, where, you know, you want someone, like, obviously you're in 18 years at this stage now. you didn't go in as CFO, did you, or did you kind
No,
of progress your
I
way up?
progressed,
Because you seem to be managing more than just CFO stuff now. If you're doing HR and everything else, I think a change of title, Dermot, is might be something.
Yeah.
But is that what happened with you, Emma? Was it you came in and kind of worked your way around and up?
Yeah, I started as an accounts assistant
Yeah.
there, and I was doing my accountancy exams, but my aspiration was always to get a financial controller job. Interestingly, I was thinking today, like when Terry, he was financial controller at the time, my interview asked me, where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And I cheekily told him, in your seat. And I ended up in the seat. But he moved on, and he kindly recommended me. And Dermot, to be fair, I was very young and he took a punt on me. But I suppose I have so many hats because, and this kind of goes back to the legacy of Serosep, I wore all those hats. Yeah. I was the HR department and the IT department when we were really small back over in East.
How many staff when you joined?
There was about 20.
And what are you
when I
at
joined?
now?
106.
In Limerick alone?
In Limerick alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And globally?
We are
134, I think. Yeah,
okay.
134 when you count in South Africa, 7 on top of 20.
And 20 in
if you
the
do
UK.
the maths. Yeah.
Okay.
I just checked with HR today, nothing to do with this. I actually asked how many do we have at the moment, and our HR manager told me 106.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. And like one thing that I came across and I kind of knew from previously is you got involved with COVID testing as well for a while.
Yes.
Now it's a distant memory, but again, being in a heavily regulated environment, being able to pivot into testing quickly, how did you manage that internally at all? Or was it longer than it seemed on the outside? Or
no, actually, I remember it well. It was March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day, 2020. So you remember COVID. I think the first case of COVID was something like the first case of COVID in Ireland was actually in March.
Yeah.
Right. And immediately all the companies who were working clinical diagnostics got contacted by the HSE, I had chief executives of hospitals phoning me looking for COVID tests because they couldn't get them fast enough. And we were lucky enough to be a distributor at the time of a company called Altona Diagnostics in Germany, and we sold the first test in Ireland to the virus reference lab. The first test that was used to diagnose the COVID was in the country. But
that's a nice landmark to have, you know. Yeah. And as grim as time as it was,
And then we started to supply the product to a few hospitals, and obviously it was going very nicely. And suddenly then we were told by the German company that, listen, we're not going to supply you anymore. We're going to look after our own population in Germany first. So we called a meeting with the CEO of the company on Patrick's Day. And we had a few of the senior management team on the meeting, and I begged of the guy, I said, we've been working with you a few years.
Yeah.
Can you keep supplying the product and all this? And he says no. So then there and then we had no choice. We had the capability to make the test, so we decided that we'd go and develop the test. And there was a kind of an emergency. This was an emergency, so you're allowed to get your product through approval testing much faster than normal, unbelievably fast. So I think we started proper in April, and we had the test developed in June, and we were starting to sell it then ourselves in probably around July, August, and September on a much bigger way.
And how long would that take normally if there wasn't an emergency? Years?
It could take back then there was less regulation than there is now anyway, but it could have taken you a year and a half. And it was, so we had to pivot very fast, and we had people staying in hotels and stuff like that nearby so they could come to work in the first place. And then we had a derogation that you couldn't go to work, so we were able to circumvent that, and we could get our staff into work. we had lots of obstacles to overcome. We had to set up things like porta cabins as well, and, you know, to get the whole thing sorted. But we were probably intelligent enough not to be greedy and selfish, so we kept our own business going, although that had declined by, I think, 50%. There were still people needing gastro testing inside in the hospital, and there were still people getting sick. So we kept that business going, and we also manufactured the COVID test. But what we did is we only supplied 6 hospitals in Ireland and 6 hospitals in United Kingdom. And we just said we'd do that and do that well, and that's all we done then. We didn't bother becoming greedy and selfish. Some other companies got very greedy and selfish, and they neglected their existing business, which I think was a mistake.
Yeah, and it would have been difficult to recover from that. I'd imagine post-COVID, you know, you go from everyone wants a test to nobody wants a test, and then you've neglected your regular income for the last 3-4 years or whatever, and you know it's probably a difficult hole to actually climb out of. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about was sustainability within Serosep. I know it's one of your values, and I suppose. One of the I suppose I'm interested in all the projects around wastage and the rest of it, but your solar panel project, and how you found getting that out of the ground was the challenges around it, but also I suppose the dividends that it might have paid you through energy costs.
So yeah, we embarked on the solar panel project. We have 442 panels on the roof, and I sought out, because I love getting grants as well as awards. So we got SEAI support for that.
Excellent.
And yeah, it went really smoothly. Like, they just came in and they were very neat. We have a great guy who manages all the facilities, and I don't know how he puts up with us. Sometimes he's the most patient man, and he just sent out communication to everybody. This is going to be happening over your area today, as they were going over the roof, and there'd be disturbance and noise, and they just went in, and the next thing, there was a monitor outside the canteen door to see the energy. I suppose, yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer really to do it. You know, we're finding now with sustainability on tenders, it's a big thing now, and there's a lot of weighting, and I think even more weighting is going to be put against your sustainability efforts on winning public tenders. So I just think if you're not in that space, you're not going to be in business in a couple of years' time. So we're currently engaged with a local consultancy company, Antares, to help us kind of with our carbon footprint assessment. I've gone on a course on sustainability. We're going to develop a charter and publish it and start to map out and measure the goals. It's, I suppose, the thing I find with sustainability, Sean, if I to be honest, there's an awful lot of regulations. There's an awful lot of things that you can go for. There's the voluntary CSRD for SMEs. There's the Science-Based Targets Initiative. There's ISO 14001, and you could be very busy getting all these certifications, but what we're really trying to focus now on is getting the measuring and the metering and all of that up and running, so we can actually get on with the business of reducing the carbon footprint. Like, solar panels is a great idea. I would encourage everybody to go for it, but it's only one of a myriad of things that need to be achieved. It is a bit of a sticky plaster. You know, you have to look at reducing your scope 3 emissions, all of that kind of stuff. It's very involved. So I suppose our goal for the next 12 months is to get a process set up for capturing, monitoring data that's really easy and efficient, so that we can get out of the weeds with that bit and get on with actually reducing the carbon footprint then, and actually achieving the goals that we've set out to achieve on the charter. So that's our plan.
So no plans to build windmills in Anacotti for the next 12 months?
I wouldn't rule anything out. We could have wildflower meadows and windmills and the whole lot. You never know.
There's plenty of space out there. So The last thing I want to finish up on is some quick fire questions for both of you. So kind of one word, couple of word answers. And I'll start with you, Emma. What's the hardest truth you've learned in business?
Oh, what's the hardest truth I've learned in business? I think just believe in yourself. Just back yourself, you know. And like even what you were saying earlier, Dermot, you know, you were ready to throw the towel in. Just, you know, if you really believe in what you're trying to achieve, I always say to my own kids, even like hard work always pays off.
Yeah.
It will always yield something. Mightn't be what you thought it would be, but it will always lead to something.
Yeah.
So, you know, just back yourself.
Yeah. And what about yourself, Dermot? You can't take Emma's answers now. It has.
I'd say one of the most important things I learned is, and I got a heart attack when I was 39 years of age. I was riding around in my van at the time, going up and down the country, obviously trying to get customers to use our products. And that happened we just moved to new premises out of my house actually in 2002. And, you know, at that stage, I was taking on a huge workload. I was getting up at 2:30 in the morning, 4 o'clock, driving to places like Sligo, Letterkenny. And, you know, that was when you were talking about 5.5 hours going flat out.
No motorways,
in pitch dark up to Letterkenny and Sligo. As I said, I'll not forget that road. I knew every bump in it. But anyway, to cut long story short, that gave me a real kick.
Yeah.
And I got flattened for, I suppose, I was only out of work, I think, actually about 2.5, 3 weeks. I had to have stents and stuff like that in my heart. I ended up in the Mater Hospital in Dublin. I actually had to go into emergency care immediately when it happened. I was travelling with our service engineer, Tony, at the time, and we were going to a hospital in Dublin on that particular day, and he was driving, luckily enough. So I ended up in Portlaoise Hospital, and then I ended up going to the Mater the next day to have stents put in. But I think what really stood to me was that was a really tough event at the time, but I realised that you have to delegate, and I started to delegate much more then, and I think that actually, like, that's the truth really. You have to delegate if you want to get on in a company and let it mushroom.
I'm glad you're up and about, and you seem to have fully recovered. You have more energy than me, Dermot, to be honest with you, so fair play. If you could give your 21-year-old self one piece of advice, Emma, what would it be?
Keep going.
Keep going. Dermot?
I think
no heart attacks, I suppose it would be.
I think, to be honest.
Yeah. What do you want your legacy or Serosep's legacy to be in the Midwest? One word.
I'd probably say enterprising.
Yeah. Well, I think you've achieved that so far, Dermot. So fair play. Emma?
I suppose, a leader in diagnostics, maybe, something.
Yeah. Well, I think you've achieved that as well. So, you know, I think your legacy's onto a winner. Thanks very much for coming in and having a chat with me today. I really enjoyed it, and love learning more about the Bodie and Serosep. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
That's all for today's episode of Limerick Chambers Three Bridges podcast, sponsored by AIB and produced by Big Handsome Media. My name is Sean Golden, and I'll see you next time.